welcome back to another episode of Buffalo Happy Hour. Mike, what's going on?
Derek, we are with our friend Justin Hartman in a undisclosed location. So we just wanted to sit down with you. Welcome back, man. Round two.
Yeah.
For a kind of a new aged recap of your last year, because we first sat down with you 2019. And
You just opened at that point, right?
Yeah, well, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think was it the fall of 2019?
Yeah.
We opened December 5th, so yeah.
you were super excited because obviously your equipment came in.
Right.
And that was the main stake of our conversation up front. And then you also had those amazing chocolates.
Yeah.
With some spirits in
It's
it.
all coming back.
Yeah.
It's been a bit.
Absolutely. So let's start from the beginning, man. Like what's new at Hartmans, essentially?
What's new at Hartmans? New menu, new cocktail. We've got a new little back bar that we may or may not have. I'll say it like that. That launched in November. That seems to be doing really well. So, geez, since you guys have last been here, man, we did a Loganberry vodka. It's doing very well. We released a Loganberry Seltzer that's doing very well. So we've added a couple product lines. We've got a couple more in the works. And just expanding. I think we're, in the height of the summer, up to about 27 employees.
That's wild.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Just because you talked about it, what made you get into the Loganberry Seltzer?
The seltzer market was blowing up. And believe it or not, when we created this flavor with a company, it was back in 2018, and we created it for not only seltzer, but for the vodka. We released the vodka first. And we just didn't have the resources. It was the middle of the pandemic, so it was 2020, to release the seltzer. So we had to wait on the seltzer a year. And then it kind of blew up, and I think High Noon kind of blew up too. So it was because it's more in that category. It's not a malt base like a White Claw. It was exciting, and the demand for it was wild. And we're excited to continue to produce it.
You mentioned expanding in regards to staff and having 27 employees, which is cheers, man. I mean, that's awesome. In this space, just a general question, is there room to expand either back, out, sides, up, et cetera? Or is it, this is your floor plan and this is what you get?
So this is your floor plan, this is what you get.
Okay.
100%. Unless, something happens to one of our neighbors, which I don't want to happen. We love our neighbors. But there may be plans to expand in the future.
Ooh, love that. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, realistically, not if, but when things blow up with your brand, then you'll probably need a rick house somewhere.
Correct.
So,
Yep.
all right.
That's right.
So you have, for everybody that doesn't know, coming out in a couple weeks, we will be doing a kind of limited series with Justin on how to distill and basically how to make whiskey, which is a super exciting experience. Obviously, Justin is very knowledgeable when it comes to all this stuff. But one thing that we did talk about is the final process, which is aging in your barrel house, basically.
Right.
You don't have one on premise, it's off premise. How's that going?
Yeah, so we have a space off premise that's filling up fast. We do age 48 barrels here on premise. We have a little rick. I don't know if it's in the shot. We have a little rick here on premise that we do age some barrels, but mostly it's barrels that are about to age out, and we're about to produce, process, harvest, whatever you want to say. The offsite is filling up, so yeah, it's going. It's crazy every time we go there and take a look. Like, geez, we've made a lot of whiskey.
So you regularly bring stuff in and out of this area back here?
The only row we don't touch is the middle row, because that's where we have the bondsman.
The bondsman stuff?
Yes. So, yeah, for the most part. I mean, sometimes the top rows we kind of leave alone. We do have a couple barrels against the wall that we wanted to see how they aged in more of a climate-controlled area. The warehouse and that space isn't fully climate-controlled. It has like one vent in it, so it gets really cold, it gets really hot. But it's certainly not like our warehouse is almost like completely out to the nature.
Sure.
Yeah.
And you started filling your rick house in what year? Your off-premise rick house.
Well, we brought up. When did we bring up the MGP? It was summer 2019.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're shooting for
Well, that was
4 years.
right. Our stuff that's started getting produced April 2020.
Okay.
So we're shooting for 4 years on that.
Almost halfway, man.
Yeah, almost. I know. It seems like it's forever, but it's kind of cool looking back that it's already been 2 years. We've had a couple of tastes of it already, and it's doing well. We're happy with where it's at. We actually, just by circumstance, The barrel that we've been tasting, we'll taste a few more. We barreled on my dad's birthday, and we told him, all right, Dad, every year on your birthday, we'll have a sip of this barrel. And we've left it out, and we've let other people have sips of it. So I hope it doesn't run out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be empty.
Yeah, right? I know. My potato like, what the heck? Yeah. But that seems to be our go-to barrel. It's just as easy access and whatnot. So we've tasted it every few months, and it's cool.
Now, for people that don't understand the MGP side of things, specifically regarding setting up a distillery, right? Like you want some sort of ROI, so you don't immediately open and then close. So what, from a tasting standpoint, is anybody going to notice a difference between your kind of like the startup phase to, hey, this is our first release?
That's a good question. That's a fair question. I get that a lot. I'm going to be 100% honest. I think so. I think there'll be a difference. I think it'll be a difference for the better, I hope. We haven't decided if we're going to blend some of our stuff in, as in, like High West, a great distiller. I built this off of like a model of High West, and they started aging their stuff in at the 2-year mark.
Okay.
They didn't tell you how much of it, but they it was on part of the the blend bottle or whatever we want to call it. We're not going to do that. We're certainly going to try to wait a little longer than that because 2 years is coming up anyways. But there'll be a difference in that we're using honey malt. I hope that's going to make that little extra honey note. We're using toast with a char. We got the char 2 and char 3 with a heavy toast, so there's going to be a difference there. So there's going to be a difference, but we think it's going to be for the better.
Logistically, are you stressed? Because what if it's just like, oh man, and demand goes skyrocketing?
Yeah, I mean, high demand's certainly a better problem than no demand at all. Mm-hmm. It's something where it's tough. You got to plan out for, you look 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, and right now it's just a balance of trying to produce as much as we possibly can. Because it's not only, we don't only want to say, all right, so we're on a strict schedule. We could only sell this much based on what we produce. We're also trying to set a couple barrels aside, right? Because we want to be able to say, oh, this is a 10-year expression and this is a 12-year expression. So we're trying to overproduce based on what we think demand's going to be. It's tough though because our demand from year 1, 2, and 3 is 5 times more than we thought it would be.
Yeah, and not even just like your bottle selling at liquor stores, is you have a full functioning restaurant here where you stock with just basically your stuff, except for obviously the back bar. But how is that balancing your expectations of the front bar and how many people are going to buy, and then you're like, wow, I really need to amp up production because it's selling like crazy here.
Right. No, the wholesale really took off this year.
Okay.
The front bar was really what was pushing for our first year, 2020. Now they're slowly starting to turn, which is what we want. We always want this place to be booming. We love it, and we hope we're here forever, doing well. But we obviously want to expand and have wholesale take over as the main driver of the business, I'd say. But yeah, handling a bar and restaurant and stuff like that, that's not easy. You got to rely on a good staff, you got good people to kind of have your back when you're not here. You're focused on something else, and so far, we've had that.
So from a wholesale standpoint, when we first were here back in 2019, I think you were in like one liquor store.
Yeah, probably.
How much have you expanded now?
So we're up to 2 full-time sales reps. I think we're in something like 90 liquor stores in what I call the Buffalo area. Buffalo down into also a little bit into the southern tier, like Ellicottville. Mm-hmm. And then another 35 liquor stores in Rochester and a bunch of other, and that's not including bars and restaurants. And the Rochester rep just started in late August, early September.
That's wild. Yeah. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Yeah, nice job.
Yeah,
because they're grinding.
They are. It is a grind. It absolutely is a grind. Especially when the holidays hit. There's 3 other reps there at the liquor stores with them doing it. And I appreciate them out on the road, and I see their mileage sheets. They're putting in the work. They're putting in the legwork. But it's working. It's paying off.
Mm-hmm.
So sorry, Mike, but you were talking about the how you're doing honey wheat and how that's kind of separating you a lot. How many people are honey malt? Yeah. How many people are using honey malt? Is that rare?
I know Rabbit Hole does.
Okay.
On some of their expressions. I'll openly say that's where I first had it, and I thought it was pretty cool.
Oh, okay.
And I looked into it and who produces it, and it's there's only like 2 or 3 big producers, so it was a little bit hard to track down. And the process is pretty interesting, but if you put it up next to regular malt, it's got this nice sweet honey profile, And then you can even taste it right when you just put a little bit in your mouth.
So it's an actual grain that they call honey malt. It's not flavored.
No, it's malt, but the way they do the germination process and the way they like hard stop it,
Sure.
creates a honey profile to it. It's a little bit more involved of a malting process. And it's not easy to get right from what I've read. And it's kind of like there's a lot of upfront costs because you don't get it right off the first time. I think it's like it's a craft, I'll say, you know? I did hear that there is a producer in New York that's doing it now, which is super exciting. So I'd love to try some of their product as soon as they're kind of up to scale.
So did you want to bring that in because of how unique it was, or did you just really like that flavor profile and feel like it would go great with your current mash bill?
Yeah, I mean both.
Okay.
Right. You know, it was like super unique, super cool. And then I just thought with our current mash bill and the profiles with a little bit of a toasted barrel, I really think it's going to do well. I really think it's going to make all the difference. Yeah.
Did you start with the Char 2, Char 3? Because I feel like that's also rare. Like I normally see 3 and 4.
It's almost always 4.
Yeah, no, we most of them are 3. I got to say that.
Sure.
The 2 comes from actually a class down at Moonshine U. A representative from Independent State himself came in. And somebody was like, hey, so let's shoot us straight. If I'm looking for a bourbon I want to put out in 4 years, what's your char? And he said Char 2.
Really?
He said Char 2. Absolutely. So that's, you know, you're letting it pass through, I guess, was his way of going about it. A little bit easier. It's not as much of the charcoal and much of the carbon. So we said, all right, we'll try it out.
Is there as much of a demanding filtering process then after that? Because it's not super, super charred?
I don't know. The charring does filter it out. You know, takes out the tannins.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we'll see.
Yeah, really. That's fascinating.
Yeah. But that's why we did not a ton, but a bunch, just to kind of track and see if there's a difference ourselves.
That's why it's always fascinating talking with you, man. Because I've never heard of a Char 2 like being really used.
Yeah, we're gonna go for it.
Love it.
We'll see. Well, hopefully you'll be back another 2 years. We'll be tasting our first batch, and we'll be sitting here comparing them.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
And yes, we are always down to be guinea pigs. Good or bad, we don't care. The toasting aspect of barrels, I think, is also key, because that was one of the things that we initially talked during round 1, was how that is kind of the new shift in the industry across the country. And then we've actually experienced the toasting barrel with our first single barrel, and which you were a part of that panel. So again, thank you for that. But having that toasted barrel really brought in like a legitimate buttered toast ending note for the tasting profile of the whiskey, which was incredible. But where are things on that? Because in our world, we used it, we utilized it, and then we went right to a different single barrel with a totally different process and finish. So, basically, where are you on that? Are you going to use toasted barrels?
Yeah, so all of Hartmans barrels right now are toasted in addition to charred. Now, there are barrels out there that are just toasted, and some people just toast them and finish them. I think there's a couple expressions out in the market now.
It's like Basil Hayden does a straight toast, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I think that, if I'm not mistaken, I think that's just a toasted barrel that they finish it in.
Oh,
so,
okay,
it's
gotcha.
not actually charred, too.
Okay.
So there's a difference there. So all of our barrels do have a toast, but then they get charred. Yeah. So it might eliminate some of the toasted layer, I'd imagine. I mean, you're burning it after you're toasting it, right? You're toasting it, heavy toast, caramelizing it, and then the idea is then you set it on fire for 45 seconds.
So sweet.
And the follow-up question from the first round, which I don't know if you remember this, but I asked you when they char the barrel, how do they actually ignite the flame? And does that get embedded into the barrel? And you're like, damn, that's a really good question.
That.
Right?
Of course you would.
Right?
Who thinks of that?
I know, but I just didn't understand the logistics behind it, because that's, of course, I have to dive into the weeds on it, because I watched all the tours that you can watch them from Kentucky, and they're just like, this is when we char the barrel, and I'm just like, okay, how do they do that? And I'm just like zoomed in, and my wife's looking at me like, you're so weird right now, and I'm like, but how do they do this? And then it's just a rod, and then flames shoot out.
Right.
And I go, but what is the source? Like, how do they produce the flame? Does that get into the wood? Like, I don't understand.
It's like natural gas.
Yeah, I was like, how does this work? And then, I don't know. I have yet to find that out. I'm convinced when I go to Kentucky, I'm going to ask him.
Yeah, it's got to be natural.
You're going to get thrown out. It's like, this is an industry secret.
Yeah,
get out of here.
I know. You're like, you're one of 5 to ever ask. I'm like, sorry.
Yeah, it's fun.
So since we were here last also, I keep going back to that expression because it has been quite a bit since we've talked to you, but you have started out the restaurant, you had your food ideas, and then I feel like it just exploded into like this creative food restaurant up front. Where was that idea from where you're like, let's have like avocado toast, or not avocado toast, you had bruschetta toast or something, tomato toast?
Sure.
Well, where did these food ideas come from?
Yeah, I think we just wanted to expand the menu.
Yeah.
And just slowly, when we first opened up, we just wanted the bases. We wanted to serve something easy to make, people would like, bring people in, have them sit down, be able to enjoy one or two cocktails and then munch on something kind of. And then just as we grew, we expanded the profile. Like, hey, we can actually do this. We can make this. We can switch this around. And it was a learning curve, and it's not over yet. We're still we try to flip the menu every quarter and a half, just depending on the seasonal. Keep it seasonal, keep it with whatever's in fresh produce wise, that kind of thing. So every 4 months, 3-4 months, they're trying to impress us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you travel and then come back with different inspirations?
I think that's a huge part of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely a huge part of it. I mean, a lot of the inspiration for what you've seen at Hartmans was based on 7 years living in New York City, multiple trips down to Kentucky distilleries, classes in Colorado. So I think it's very important to get out there and see what other people are doing. And just like, hey, that's a good idea. And sometimes that's just a springboard for even a better idea.
Yeah.
What classes in Colorado?
The ADI had a conference there. And as part of the conference, there's workshops that were in and out of the conference. So it'd be like during conference hours, and then you could pay for one that was after the conference hours. I did 2 of those. One was the one with Nancy Fraley, which was it was 2 full days on just barrel maturation. Can you believe that? 2 full days.
That's a lot of content.
That's insane. But it's so important. It's like you just don't think about this stuff.
Right.
The other class was interesting in that it was tasting notes on different toasts, that one was particularly char levels. That's the one where, I don't know if I told you this story. I got into the weeds with it very briefly. I'll try to be brief on this one.
No worries.
It was after the second day of the conference. So there's distillers. It was like a class you had to pay for. It sold out immediately. And it was a whole bunch of head distillers. And we're tasting different things. And I'm trying to remember the source of this. Oh, the idea was that this barrel had aged for 6 months. The wood was aged 6 months. That was the experiment. We were tasting barrels that were aged for 6 months. And when I say that, I mean the wood itself, not with the whiskey inside of it. You when you make a barrel, the wood that you use, the white oak, actually has to dry. Mm-hmm. You can kiln dry it, which means it's done in like a day, right? You can get it done immediately because it's dried automatically. Or you naturally let it sit outside and dry itself. It's very important that you do the latter. No offense, kiln dry users. But the reason is because a lot of what breaks down the wood with the alcohol is the microorganisms that actually grow on the wood during these seasons. They create, when the alcohol comes in and out, they create vanillin, which produces vanilla. So when he was getting back to the story, we were all tasting it, and the big reveal was, well, it was 6 months. The wood in this was aged 6 months outside, and some guy behind me, good old Southern guy, big old guy, was like, well, what 6 months? He had to be like 70 years old. And they all turned to him and he goes, what, 6 months? I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, in Kentucky, there's a dry season and a rainy season. And it's so important because he said, I'll drive past those. So he must have been right down there in Lebanon, Kentucky. He's like, I'll drive past those stacks of this wood. And after the rainy season, that grass is all burnt out because the rain washes the toxins out. So that's also very important. And he says, that's why you always want at least 12 months. So you're at least getting one rainy season. All of our barrels are 18 months, which are a little more expensive, but you want them sitting out there aging before they actually get whiskey in, before they're actually made.
Is there a timeline that either that stops and it doesn't matter anymore, or is it just like you can age wood up to like 4 years if you wanted to?
The oldest I've seen is 36 months. You can buy all the way up to 36 months.
That's fascinating because I don't know if I ever actually dove into the weeds on that, because you hear the term new char oak barrels and you assume that they literally cut down the tree, kiln drying it, and then it's like new.
Yes.
But it's not.
No, it's not. Well,
that's fascinating.
Yeah. I think that's the preference, anyways. My education should be to let it naturally dry for some point of time to wash out toxins, allow those microorganisms to grow to produce better flavors.
That's fascinating.
Yeah,
I did not even.
wild.
Yeah.
So this is why we sit down and talk. That's incredible.
Well, Independent Stave has a whole library on this. It's wild that if you're a customer, you can go there. You're not allowed to take books out, and you're not allowed to make copies, but you can make notes, and they'll let you go through all their studies on this.
It's the new Library of Alexandria, bro.
Literally. That's awesome.
So that's fascinating. I just forgot what I was going to say because I was so excited about that.
So 18 months are the barrels that you choose.
Yes.
And then you get those shipped in.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if it's past 18 months and you take it from point A to point B, do you only get barrels a certain time of the year so that you're kind of mitigating potential risk of other elements impacting the barrels, or do they come in a container that's sealed, like the back of a semi, where they're not being hit by elements?
They do come in the back of a semi.
Okay.
And they're wrapped in plastic and cardboard.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right.
So they're all sealed up when they come in, when they ship them to us. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. No, they're ready to go.
One of these days, I'm telling you, I'm
Yeah.
just going to show up and just like, let's do it, man.
So one of the things that, since Mike and I have been doing this for over 2 years now, we've been trying so many different whiskeys.
Okay.
And what we've been doing is we've had this assumption that everybody out there is doing Kentucky whiskey reviews. Like, Kentucky is the thing that everybody wants to do. That's what obviously everybody associates with bourbon. In your opinion, because you've been so well educated on all this, what is a sleeper state that you feel produces some great whiskey that nobody talks about?
Washington, Texas, Vermont.
Yeah.
I think it's these extreme weather patterns. I think it's the Northwest and Northeast. A lot of it has to do with, I think we talked about this the very first time, barometric pressure. And you can just Google what's your best day-to-day or highest day-to-day barometric pressure changes. And there's a map, a color-coded map. It essentially follows the normal pattern of the jet stream. However, Texas does get some pretty big swings. Mm-hmm. And it's weird. You can just look the city list up, and I'll tell you what the most recent dated, yearly average is. And at least when I looked it up a couple years ago, Buffalo was double that of Kentucky. There's a couple cities in Austin in Texas that were pretty high, which is interesting. So it was kind of this weird swing of it. But I really think the Northeast and Northwest.
So the more variation in barometric pressure produces better whiskey? Is that the
That's
assumption?
100% what I'm saying. 100%.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, because it's the whiskey going in and out of the wood, right? And that could occur with temperature. And that's what the Rick houses tried to accomplish in Kentucky was, all right, let's put it up on the 7th floor. It's 140 degrees, and it's gonna really really hit it hard, and then it's gonna be freezing cold up there in the winter. Yeah, that does the trick, but you also can burn it out real fast. And I think that's why. Well, you're also seeing a lot of one-story rick houses being built in Kentucky. I think it's to get away from that kind of heat extreme, because you can burn a product out. Barometric pressure, it's all what gets it in and out of the wood. In and out. That's why that tornado release, Colonel Taylor tornado release, it's now up to what, $18,000 a bottle. The tornado came through, it ripped all the barometric pressure changed to like the most extreme in a second, ripped it out of the wood. We immediately bottled it. I'm sure there's a ton of marketing there, but I mean that's kind of like the whole idea behind it. Is you just pull that whiskey out of the wood real fast.
It's almost like Jefferson's. Jefferson's Oceans.
Their ocean, yeah.
Oh.
It's which we've reached over 100 spirit reviews.
Whiskey
No
reviews,
way.
Yeah.
Come on.
Swear to God, man.
It's kind of weird looking back on it. Like, we're alcoholics, kind of.
Well, so it was interesting. No, true story. We were sitting there with a group of friends, and they brought one of their friends from work. I've never met him before. He asked me what I do, like outside of work, and I was like, I actually we run Buffalo Happy Hour. Ran him through. He's like, hold on, like I love spirits, and I was like, yeah, I got a full spreadsheet of everything I've ever reviewed. It's right in my link in our Instagram bio. And he's like, really? And I said, yeah. And I pulled it up, and that was the first time I've looked at that in a long time. And I was like, and it's up to date. So I'm scrolling through, and I'm like, hold on, like this. It's only once a week, and I had to like immediately defend myself, and he's laughing at it like, you've tried a lot of drinks, man. I was like, I know, I got a problem, and it was like the first time I actually looked at the full Excel spreadsheet, and it's all linked with thumbnails to watch everything, but I was like, this is nuts.
You guys have been busy.
Yeah,
Very busy,
So
but
it wasn't I one of the first ones?
yeah, absolutely.
So 102 years. That's insane.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's insane. That's one a
Wild.
week, at
Yep.
least.
at least.
Well, yeah, right there.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, sometimes there's a couple where we'll do like different Lafroigs in a day.
Yeah, okay.
But it's,
But then our palate's shot, so we have to
Yeah.
stop after that because you can only consume so much peat before you want to die.
yeah, literally. But it's
Still
it's,
wild.
I know.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So your ADI conference. Oh,
Yeah, but sorry. The whole point of that was it's interesting you mentioned Texas because we've hit a lot of different distilleries in the West, in the Northwest, and then down in Texas too. And we realized that there's totally different tasting notes compared to Kentucky.
Yep.
And that's probably the first time it got validated that we weren't totally losing our marbles. And we're just like, there's other options outside of Tennessee and Kentucky. Like, why aren't people trying these?
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, good on you because obviously you have a huge collection, which is great. And you have the mainstays that you would ever want, plus some. So it's really cool that you have incorporated other states because from a spirit lover, why not?
Right.
Like it's the nation's spirit. So
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I think I always encourage try something new, because a lot of people are doing a lot of cool things. And it's just fun to taste the variations and you'll pick it up. It's noticeable, like you just said.
so all of this barometric pressure discussion and all that, is that something that you've learned from Moonshine U and like these other conferences that you've been to?
Where did we talk about that? It was talked a little bit in the Colorado class. Moonshine U touched on it a bit. It's kind of always been the back and forth with, is it temperature, is it pressure, is it temperature, is it pressure, is it both? It's definitely a both.
Yeah.
I'm personally a huge big fan of barometric pressure because connecting the dots with, okay, well, if you look at the color of the barometric pressure scheme, the Northeast and Northwest are very similar to Scotland, Ireland, England. And that's why we don't have 30-year bourbons. I think we
Right.
talked about this very first time. And now they're doing it. They're burying them in caves. They're going slow and low. They're finally doing slow and low. So it's exciting that's kind of where it's going to be at.
Can anybody attend these conferences, or is it just for master distillers?
oh, calm down, dude.
I know, seriously. Well, because last time you were talking about Stave and Thief, and we're like, all right, we're doing it, and then now we're certified because I want to be you. That's basically what we're coming down to.
We sent Justin Brink, who probably pops up in the video. He's in the production room today. We sent him down to Moonshine U for the 6-day class this last October. It's just anybody can attend. Yeah, and the conference specifically, I think it's $200 and you can attend. The classes cost extra. You have to kind of pre-sign up, and you have to be a member of the American Distilling Institute. But anybody can become a member.
Oh, the D is for distilling. I thought it
Yeah.
was the American Drinking Institute. I'm like, those are my people. Let's all get the boys together.
That's funny.
That's awesome. So what's next? Anything else in the plans for you? Are you thinking about anything, or is it all just let's continue doing what we're doing because we're doing something right?
No, I think it's always about kind of expanding, growing, learning, and trying stuff new. I can tell you that we will be releasing an experimental label soon. And under the label, we're going to do different projects. So we'll be able to do smaller batches of things we're just trying out. So it's going to be limited release stuff that's going to be released under our 375 milliliter bottles. Probably a lot to just be able to get here, but it'll be things that we do one barrel of.
Sure.
Just to see how popular is it, what did it turn out to be.
Are you getting an experimental still to do that, or are you doing it on your current system?
But doing it on the current system.
Okay.
Yeah. Or our current setup, I should say.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no worries. I like that. Well, hey, man, we appreciate everything.
Absolutely, guys. I appreciate you having me. Very cool. Very cool, the history we have.
Right. Wow, then it's only going to keep growing, man.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So cheers. Thank you for the new stag that you have. Appreciate that. It's awesome. And thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Cheers, everyone.
We'll see you for round 3.